Yeah,
Here.
you have a quorum.
The record indicate we have a quorum. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance. I
Pledge
pledge
allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands,
One nation under God, indivisible, with justice for all.
Thank you. Number 4, certification compliance, open meeting laws.
This meeting has been noticed to the public and news media as required by section 19.84 of the Wisconsin statutes.
Thank you. Before we do number 5, I received a phone call just before I left. And Ms. Kathy LaRue, representing the Alliance, has done a lot of work over this last 7 days. And I thank her for that. And I think she can tell us an update before we move on to number 5. Yeah.
A lot of our committee already knows this, but we've had meetings with LCO. They've been really good meetings. They want to promote ATV in Sawyer County, and we're very happy about that. They did agree to reopen almost all the roads that were previously closed. A few exceptions, Highway E south of Highway K is going to be closed right now, but we'll discuss that in the future. There's a chance that might be reopened. Right now it's closed. There's a small segment, not a real small segment. It goes double N south of Chief Lake Road all the way down to Conger Road. There is a reroute for that, and it's a trail, which is Trail 9, so it's a little bit of a longer drive. But with that reroute, at least our businesses, all of the businesses that were previously affected now will have access. They've also opened up Highway K down to the trail at Indian Drive where it picks up on County Road. So I'm looking forward to a relationship with working with the tribe in the future, and hopefully we can keep moving forward.
Thank you. Number 5 is the meeting agenda. It is set for us. Number 6 is public comment. I have 3 people that filled out papers wishing to speak. Kay Wilson, please step forward to the podium and say your name and address, please.
My name is Kay Wilson. I live at 10850 N Stewart Road in Hayward, Town of Round Lake. I'm here representing myself. And I have an objection to the intermingling of the words town and township in this ordinance. I looked up the definitions and through the Wisconsin Towns Association. And a town government, according to them, has a long history in Wisconsin, brought to the state by New Englanders in the early 19th century. In most states, the unit of government is referred to as a township. However, in several states, including Wisconsin, the form of government is a town. In the Badger State, a township is only the surveying unit that is typically 6 miles by 6 miles. So wherever there's township in this ordinance, it should be town to make it appropriate language. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Matt Maskey.
Mickish.
Thank you.
No problem. Matt Mickish, 7230 North Sandy Point Road, Cooteray. Here, I own Chippewa Pines Resort. Excuse me, my wife owns Chippewa Pines Resort. I'm a co-owner. I love to sleep indoors. Here representing me and probably a lot of, I won't speak for anyone, but probably a lot of the people that are in my position and truly appreciate and benefit from the UTV ATV community, both local and transient from our tourism segment. I just want to make sure everyone that's making a decision for us, your constituents, on any decision that involves any of this, pictures themselves in the shoes of a few of us, at least for a moment. I'm gonna give a couple examples, just on Chief Lake alone. 2 resorts changed hands last year. And in their ultimate due diligence, millions of dollars were spent to acquire these by families who gave up their life savings to attempt to do this. And in their due diligence, they used actual books from traffic that was a result of legal and published UTV and ATV clientele. That not only could just get to them, but could get to them with ease. And not through a rerouting system that sends them all but 8 miles from the county south of us. With at that point in the new reroute we're proposing, with at that point, the nearest gas station actually being closest in another county. At that point, let's think for a minute. These folks actually went and did the right thing. I spent another $300,000-400,000 on my place when I got Sandy Point Road opened up, because I knew that I opened myself up to a new clientele and to a new group of people that could come and benefit not only my books, but the books of the tax, the tax base of the area, the enjoyment of the entire Northwoods experience. It just makes sense to seriously, let's put ourselves in the shoes of the people that families have invested their life savings in, seeing to it that what was legal a minute ago may not be today. And removing that is not just removing a right on a road, it's removing a whole bunch of money out of a checking account from these people that worked really hard in our community to see to it that they put that together. Secondly, this is a policing nightmare. There's absolutely no way to police this without extreme prejudice and huge bias, based on the fact that maps are printed, both digital and print. We've actually provided several sites, be it a trail tracker or the Polaris Ride Command or whatnot, with a map that has the sections we will now be discussing as unopened. Open. We'll be asking an officer of our law to pull over John Q. Smith and his wife as they're color seeing, looking at the trees in September, and show them that, hey, here's your ticket for being on this road. I mean, much worse, maybe we'll confiscate your vehicle for being on this road, when they can point right at the Trail Command map in front of them that they've been doing nothing other than what their planned route was, using information that our alliance, that our county, that our group here gave to these sources to show our clientele, especially the responsible ones, it's legal to be there. I think we're very, very, very premature on this. The only thing we could do is postpone that till next year, when the new maps have already not been out, and say, hey, sorry, but we can't pull someone over and have them show us a paper map or a ride command that they actually purchased through a vehicle or through a site. And shows them right in front of the officer, giving them a ticket or confiscating their vehicle, and say, sorry, you're wrong. And we can't do that without, giving a break to this person and not giving a break to that person. We can't do it without a tribal versus non-tribal, who gets off, who doesn't. I enjoy the Northwoods. I vacationed here my entire life. I was fortunate enough to be able to earn a good enough wage to say the end of my life is going to be spent owning a business here and being a part of this community, and being very excited to not only be a part with my neighbors on my local road, but to be right in the middle of the reservation. And I have so many friends, many tribal members are here with me tonight, that have benefited from my friendship. I'm not talking about business. I'm talking about just being better off or having known people. And a lot of this comes to play through ATV. A lot of this comes to play through the main form of transportation that a few of the elderly tribal members that are here use their ATV to get to my place. Now, I'm very grateful that you guys have talked about it. And Kathy, thanks for your work on getting some of these things back opened and close to kind of where it was before. But I think the only responsible, if we were to truly look at this without emotion and actually being responsible to our constituents, to the risk of litigation, the only responsible thing to do is to grandfather in the previous map from last year. And to say that's how it is. You want to talk about opening things in the future? I think the county has a right to say these roads, our county roads, are going to be open. We have the alliance, we have committees in place and purpose to work directly hand in hand with the county and with the tribe to see to it that the routes along those roads are responsibly used, safety wise, time wise, what have you. But we can't look at our businesses over on just, and I thank you, my business is not as affected as some others. What you did this morning. We can't look at these guys on Chief Lake Lodge and say, hey, your customers, they can get to you. It's 45 more minutes. And they've got a half a mile to go exactly the opposite direction we used to go to get to them. We can't look ourselves in the eye and say, yeah, that works for them. We did them a favor. We eliminated the repeat clientele who've exercised their right to enjoy our beauty and wanted on our trail system in the past legally. And we told me, you gotta go somewhere else. And I promise you guys, the somewhere else is gonna be Minocqua. It's gonna be northern Minnesota. It's gonna be a place that is at least seemingly more friendly. The minute we give a ticket or a confiscated vehicle or anything, I know that's the extreme. The minute we give a ticket to somebody who's been here doing this and doing this right and responsibly, that goes to social media in a moment. It's not just him and his wife. It's not just his friends in the club at home. It's everybody that they can find in 2 minutes on a public platform of social media that says Sawyer County is not where you want to be if you enjoy this type of hobby. We can single-handedly eliminate tourism over a 5-year period. That guy not going to put his boat in the lake this afternoon and shoot over to the landing. If he's staying 4 nights at the casino, he gets a ticket on day 1. Your next 3 nights are gone, folks. You're giving him his money back for the next 3 nights. He's going to tell, he's not bringing his snowmobile back in. He's not having his grandkids come up and sit around.
Good.
We have to be careful. This sets a larger precedence than I think many of us have thought about. And it's very easy for emotion to get involved. And you can see I'm emotional, but we have to set them up. This isn't church, this is state. There's no theology involved in what we're talking about right here. There are a lot of people that want to benefit from this and they can. I vow to be a better steward of the grounds. I vow to be a better steward of the responsibility attached with these privileges. And I think I can speak for all other resort owners, all their property owners, we'll do a better job. The good that'll come from this, put the trails back, grandfather this in, the good that'll come from this, we've scared the crap out of each other. We now understand it's not just privileges we get, there are responsibilities that have to be upheld for us to not face consequences and lose those privileges. I vow to captain that, and I'm positive the people behind me will do it with me. We will be better stewards, we will be better neighbors. Let us self-police this and see to it that we can show everybody that we can live hand in hand and enjoy this amazing gift our Creator gave us that is the Northwoods. And let us do it hand in hand with the tribe. Let us do it hand in hand with the elderly. Let's do it hand in hand with the people that are only here part of it. I really appreciate the time. I know I went long. It's just really important. This affects so many more things than we might think about as we leave our little world to come to this meeting. People spend millions. You know, people are used real books that were generated from existing traffic from this to make a decision that they put their family's life savings into. We have to be cognizant of that. Down the ladies, it would be responsible if we wanted. I appreciate it. Thanks for the time.
Thank you. Mr. Jim Smiler.
James Schlender, here on behalf of Woodbury Tribal Government. I live in 8133 Blackberry Lane, which is town of Hayward. I'm here and request my client to discuss some of the things that were mentioned at the regular scheduled meeting, which turned into public comment, which turned into some inflammatory rhetoric, which the tribe doesn't support and doesn't agree with. And first thing that came up was proof of ownership. So if you look on every map that's ever been printed from basically 1850 to the present, it shows that Lukudere exists on that map. To understand the idea of what the indigenous people had is that they had ownership of that land prior to the United States, prior to Wisconsin, all of that. There's case law that speaks to that, documents, there's treaties that speak to that. And that's rooted in the United States Constitution. It's under Article 6. These are things that are taught to lawyers in the first year of law school. It used to be taught in civics class back when we were in high school. So I don't know what they're teaching in high school now. So the ownership is established through the treaty that was signed as those tribal members reserved the right to have that homeland. And then that treaty itself was litigated because over the course of that time, that land was taken away. I don't want to be disrespectful, and I'm going to say some of these things are going to be a little bit kind of hurtful, but that Chief Lake area used to be the village where my great-great-grandmother used to live. And that land was taken away when they flooded the Chippewa River and that lake came in. And so now it's a tourist destination, but for me, that's the remains of my grandmother's childhood. That's the remains of where my great-grandmother was relocated because that village was wiped out because it used to be on right there on the corner of where Tyner and Chief Lake is on. And so my grandmother is buried there in trying to keep our family together. So we have a connection to this land. And so when we talk about restricting the trails, we understand that there's an economic impact, but we're trying to preserve the integrity of the communities that we have a responsibility to maintain, so that my grandchildren know where we live, that we understand what's going on. And we understand that there's a commitment and an investment. I'm going to tell you that the tribal government understands that we don't live in a vacuum, that we all have to kind of get around and get together. And I'm encouraged to hear that some of the resort owners are making a more concerted effort to understand their community, because you joined us. We didn't live here and then we just had a tourist spot for you to come in. And so if you did your research, you knew that you're in the middle of an Indian reservation. Well, how did that Indian reservation come about? Not all good stories, but that Indian reservation is here and we're still here, and we still have a responsibility to maintain that. So if there's a question about the ownership of the jurisdiction or the legitimacy of the government, that legitimacy of the tribal government is tied with the United States Constitution. I'm a former Marine, and so I was asked when I was 18 to take an oath to defend this country against foreign and domestic, right? Part of that is protecting the treaties that came out of that, came out of those negotiations between the treaty makers that were on the federal side and on the tribal side. The second part that I will say is some of the rhetoric that came out of last week's discussion was, well, make the tribe prove it. Well, we have proven it. There was a case that came out of the Seventh Circuit earlier this year that talked about the taxation on the 54 treaty. And there's a provision in here that says this is the homeland that belongs to the Ojibwe and it should never be removed from them. And that court upheld that. And so now there's this whole tax scheme that's coming in place there about recognizing the ownership of those tribal members, of those descendants of that person that signed that treaty. Neil Gorish, when he was writing one of the opinions out of the Supreme Court, said, great nations, like great people, should keep their promises. We're honoring our promise. We're making a concerted effort to try to respect our neighbors' access. And so we're working on trying to figure this out, right? And so we're told that we want to enjoy the scenic routes, but now we're talking about shortcuts to get from point A to point B. So we're either there to enjoy the scenery or we're in a race to get from one point to the other. The tribe will work with you on that. The thing that the tribe will ask is, don't come and tell us what you're going to do, ask us. Kathy came and asked, and we worked hard. We had discussions back and forth, and she heard a lot of stories about some of the trauma that existed with the tribes. And then we listened to some of the trauma that the property owners have had to deal with in terms of road maintenance and in terms of austerity of being in the middle of an Indian reservation. And I will say this, Bass Lake made a true effort, and they reached out back in October of last year, and we worked out an agreement. Why? Because they came and asked us. They said, look, we know that this has been what's been happening. This is what we want to accomplish. What can we do to try to work that? And they didn't always agree. We didn't always agree, but we came to a compromise, recognizing that we have a responsibility for the integrity of our communities, because we don't get just one ATV. We get 20 ATVs that come through there. And we're right, the trails are confusing. I didn't even know what the trail system was until this whole thing popped up. And so those 20 ATVs sit in the middle of one of our communities waiting for something to happen, right? And sometimes that's 8 o'clock at night, sometimes it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. That's 20 ATVs that are sitting in your neighborhood. Now that's great for a resort, but when you're waiting for your kid to get off the bus and you've got all these ATVs out there, you get a little bit nervous because no one's there to be rude, but you're there to get to somewhere else. Well, those people live there. That's their house. That's where they live. That's the noise that wakes them up at 9 o'clock at night, even though you guys are enjoying, or the people coming through on those ATVs are enjoying the scenery. All we hear is the whoa, 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 whoa. And, some of us want to go whoa with them. Some of us can't, so I mean, we're trying our best to balance this out. So the tribe, when we talked with Kathy, when we talked with the other ones, we reached out to all the townships. Some of the townships didn't want to recognize the legitimacy of the tribal government. That's insulting. That is really difficult to I don't know how you're going to come to an agreement if you're not going to acknowledge the legal obligation that the tribe has to protect its citizens, not just its enrolled members, but the people who live in those communities. We have a fundamental right to do that. That was preserved under those treaties in the same aspect. So If you really want to litigate this, I'm gonna tell you the only person that's gonna enjoy that is gonna be me. Because you're gonna pay my legal fees as we go to court, whether I win or lose, the lawyers are gonna get paid. We know that. We've seen it with the 54 litigation. Some of us probably were here when we had the hunting and fishing rights in the Voight Task Force and that whole screwy thing that we had with the fishing back in the 80s. The lawyers got paid. The taxpayers paid for those legal fees. And what did you come out of it? A compromise that you could have said, look, let's do this, let's work on this. Because this is not set in stone. Maybe this works, maybe it doesn't work, maybe we can do something else. I'll tell you this, the tribe is asking respectfully to be patient with what we're trying to do, because this ATV phenomenon is brand new. It's like, what, 5 years in the making? Maybe a little bit longer. It's hard. It's hard to understand what this is. And everybody wants to come to the reservation because it's a little more, remote, a little bit different. It's different than the city. And so everybody comes here and goes to their corners, and then we're talking about the economic impact. Well, no one's paying any kind of tribal tax. No one's making a contribution to maintain those roads that we have. And you're gonna say, well, those are county roads. Well, I'm gonna tell you that there's a legal argument that goes with that. And we've had discussions with the county. There's no easements that are registered. And you can't have a road on federal trust land without an easement. We've asked the county to provide those documents. In an easement, as you probably understand when you bought your property, there's a reciprocal document that establishes the right and protects it so that someone else can't come in and say, this is my road, you need to walk away because I got this document over here.
Mr. Swindle, you're addressing the committee.
Oh. Okay, floor,
There's somebody on the floor there.
you know, trying to balance it, and I afraid some of these guys are getting mad at me. But anyway, I would say this. I think a solution is reachable. I think the tribe is ready to have a discussion, a good faith discussion, without threat of legal, without the threat of whatever the other threats were, boycotting or whatever else that's coming out of there, because whatever's threatened against us, the tribe has the same capacity in return. And nothing comes from that. It was not got two eyes, you both go blind. Be patient, but be respectful. If you really want a path that comes through, come and explain it to us, but then also come see our community. If you really want to be part of our community, then come see our communities and see what happens when you get these ATVs that come through. I have the documents to establish the legitimate jurisdiction and authority of the tribal government that's recognized. And we have a proclamation that was passed by the federal government in 2017. Think about that. Who was president in 2017? The government acknowledged and reaffirmed the ownership of that under 2017. Indian tribes deal with the executive branch. We'll stop there because I don't want to end up being falsely indicted on whatever else is going to come out of here. But anyway, I would just ask on behalf of the tribal government that exercise some patience. Make a true, honest effort to reach out and understand your communities that you're joining. And I think that we can all work towards a solution. And if not, then we all can go to court. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. That were the three papers I have. Does anybody else feel that they need to speak at this time? Hearing none, thank you. Number 7, ATV, UTV route ordinance. First letter A is highway. ATV, UTV route request. Is there any update on that, Mr. Alvarado?
Sure. Let's see, I'll share the screen here. So based on the information that we've received back from the Alliance and their discussions with the tribe, I think if we understand correctly, there's been some additional routes that were previously in the rule, but we did not renew last month that have been agreed to. If anybody wants to correct me, let me know. So what I have up on the screen is two sets of segments that were not approved last month as part of the renewals. The top three, County Road E from Williams Road to the tribal boundary by Norwest Road, County Road CC from County Highway B to Carpenter Lake, and County Road K from County KK to Indian Drive were segments of routes previously approved that had part of their route on the reservation. Those three specific ones are outside the reservation, but would need to be approved to keep them as ATV routes. And then the lower section are routes that have are on the reservation. And that includes County Road H from Blueberry Fire Lane to Blueberry Avenue, County Road NN, Green Lake Road to Chief Lake Road. And that comes with a caveat that that's a temporary passageway until Trail 777, which is rehabilitated. So they would use this alternate route. Goes from Green Lake Road to Indian Lake Road and from Indian Lake Road to Gurnell Lake Road. And then once that trail is rehabilitated, that section would be closed. And then also we have County Road CC from County Highway B to Florida Road. That's the entire segment. The part on the reservation is Carpenter Lake to Florida Road. County Road E from County Road K to Williams Road is the entire route. The section on the reservation is County Highway K to the tribal boundary by Norwest Road. County Road K from County Road E to Indian Drive, and County Road S roughly from County Highway B to the reservation boundary are the sections that would need to be approved to be added to our list that we approved last month. And then just to clarify, ones that we did have on our list before that are not been agreed to renew. County Road CC from County Highway N to Conga Road, County Road E from County Highway K to Reserve Road, County Road N from County Highway NN to CC, and then County Road NN from Chief Lake Road to Gurnell Lake Road. And I believe all four of those segments, the intent is that to at this point, to not have ATVs on the county road, but have them on Trail 777 once that's rehabilitated, which kind of.
Is that right? Yeah. North and south off of Chief Lake Road. Off of Double N. Off of Double N.
Well,
just said don't let-
Excuse me. We have a meeting here, please.
So I just make sure I understood.
Run back through that again. You wanna run back through that double end section?
Thank you.
Chief Lake,
Double N, okay. So County Road NN. What I've got is. This is off of this. From Green Lake Road to Chief Lake Road. And then the note is that County Road NN from Green Lake Road to Gurnell Lake Road is a temporary bypass. And will be closed to use after both sections of Trail 777. From Green Lake Road to Indian Lake Road and Indian Lake Road to Gurnell Lake Road are rehabilitated so they are safe and passable for the majority of ATV users.
get it? Or are you missing the second part?
The second part where he said from and then.
So County Road and is open from Chief Lake to Gurnell Lake.
Yeah,
It is,
Yeah, it is.
after that,
Yeah.
after 777.
It's open all the way back to the business.
We heard it the other way. No problem. Yeah,
Okay,
just misunderstood.
Okay.
Well, questions for the committee? What's the committee want to do?
Can we just touch on that? Because we don't, at last month's meeting, we did not renew County NN from County N to Gurnell Lake Road. So do we need to add that back in?
Mr. Chair,
Who's Go ahead, Mr. Helwig.
that one that we're talking about adding, was there any sort of documentation put in to request that road be added to our routes?
It's a good question.
Prior, we had. Prior to in the previous year, County Road NN was open from Gurnell Lake Road to County N.
Yeah, no, that'll happen on Larson Road now on Trail 777 from N to
Gurnall, yeah.
Okay, so we don't want to,
Yeah, no, it no longer goes from Chief Lake to N. I don't know that it ever did.
yeah, it was prior, it's been open from Gurnor Lake to N has.
Is that the way you read it, Ms. Ross?
No, but
Are you okay with that?
We did not renew it though last month.
yeah, it's not open.
Okay.
County Road NN from N to Gurnall Lake.
And doesn't work currently.
It does, but it's open after Chief Lake.
Can I address the committee?
This minute. Kathy, you want to address this?
Well. NN. From Green Lake to Chief Lake Road, is
Oh,
what
my
we're
God.
trying to approve, correct?
That's the temporary one.
Right, but that goes all the way to Chief Lake Road.
Correct.
And so when that bypass road is closed after 777 is fixed, we need.
It'll still be open, but it'll just be open
It'll
from
be
Gurnall
open
to
from
Chief.
Colonel Lake Road
Yeah,
to
through
Chief
that
Lake Road on NN,
Yes. Yep.
so. I mean, Andy, you might want to leave that last one in. It kind of does double duty down at the bottom, County Road NN, Chief Lake Road to Gurnall Lake Road. You
Okay,
might want to just simply leave that one in.
I would leave that there, yeah.
Because when you remove the bypass, then we won't have the confusion of. trying to
Right.
figure
No,
that
I
out.
would leave that for sure.
so that should be in,
Yeah.
all right? Cause that wasn't on this sheet, but
I don't know. I'm confused off this old one over here. I think I'm.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
those ones that are highlighted in blue, are they additions? Or are they ones that have already been
Yeah.
on there?
those are the ones that are not to be approved,
right,
except for the number fourth one now.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Slender, something else you want to address?
So there's 2 points. One is the documentation that I think Mr. Howing is making reference to is actually a point of contention at the Tribe Act. So the previous roads commissioner, when they would bring these routes forward, would have the map identifying the route that was included, and then it would include a resolution from like the area of the jurisdiction. So like be town of Ojibwe or town of Weaver or town or whatever, right? And so never was there ever a resolution from the tribe regarding the roads that were within the reservation boundaries. And so we're hoping that that is something that can be remedied going forward. Second part is so that to address the confusion, because you have Green Lake Road that's north on Double N. So you go down south on Double N, you'll come to Chief Lake Road. Chief Lake Road then goes to, what's the road that goes into Chief Lake, past Landing on, what's the name of that road? Chief Lake Road. Chief Lake Road. So the Chief Lake Road comes from Larson, then all the way to Chief Lake, right?
Yes.
So from the point of Double N and Chief Lake Road, that remains open to the business. The temporary route is the north part of Double N to compensate for 777.
Yeah.
What's not available, because N doesn't come north, it's east and
Right.
west. So from Chief Lake Road, from Double N down to N to CC, they closed that down because there was communities and no businesses that were connected to that route. So there is that turnaround that comes through and it adds a little bit more, but there's communities.
What about Daggett's?
Thank you for the clarification.
There's a resort there. Daggett's Resort is there with a large contingency. In that section.
About halfway.
So now we have the
Oh,
routes
I see what you're saying.
addressed.
I mean, it's there.
This committee want to do.
Good, bad, or otherwise.
Oh, that's a good one. There you go.
They're landlocked. Yeah.
I guess my question is with these, is this going to require significant additional signage?
It will require some more signage. I believe presently. The club pays for the signs and the highway department installs them.
No, we currently do all the signage. We think we can probably take signage off the portions that are closed and utilize those in these areas. If we need additional signage, we'd have to work with, you know, LCO on maybe helping us with some of that cost. We don't get signage for, I've explained, we do not get reimbursed for road signs. So
Yes.
So I get a question, you know, just based on some of the conversations that's here now, under 4.03.
We're on routes.
Well, what I'm getting at is these routes get renewed annually. But what would happen if, for example, like Jim had said, you know, somebody from the public here approached the tribe, asked them to consider an additional segment. Is there a provision in that ordinance that allows that?
So,
Yes,
yeah, I mean, are you asking about adding?
Yeah, in the event that, you know, somebody approaches the road governing board and they said, oh, okay, yeah, we could agree to that. And so where would that be under that meet there? Because the only thing I see is that annually is,
No, not to, I guess, if you want to jump into the
in the ordinance.
in the ordinance, it does have multiple times a year where that additional routes can be added. And that'll be more of a discussion when we get into the ordinance, but right now it's.
It's not like it's blocked, well, I mean,
No,
there's a chance to bring it forward.
okay, well, that's.
Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I just wanted.
yeah, right, new requests, right, in the draft ordinance as it reads now. It's April and September when additional requests can be brought forward for consideration.
Yeah, because even like the town might be. They say they're a town or township. You know, in the event that they change their mind. On a county road segment, so,
So we think we have that covered when we're get into the ordinance.
okay.
I think, I don't know if I said this, I think, or talked to the chair about was trying to get through the routes. Because those are still operating under our current ordinance from 2018. And to get those square where we're at, that way you can approve them. And then we can move on to the ordinance, because you may or may not move the ordinance ahead tonight, you might wait and. We didn't want to, but whatever you approve for routes, we will just add into the ordinance when you bring that up.
This is what we're approving then, what came over from the tribe?
Yes. So that's based off of this, that was forwarded to me by, from the Alliance.
Okay. I have motion to approve that.
So let's clarify a little, the motion to approve the routes, accepting the 3 routes on the bottom. That were routes before.
Yes. Right?
Could there be one last question? I'm so sorry, John. I don't mean to be. Could there
Make
be,
it brief.
could there, I absolutely, I appreciate the opportunity. Could there be a look at from Chief Lake to down to Daggett's? I mean, unfortunately.
There will be.
Is
Okay, I can address
that,
it.
what is protocol to see to it that, how do we look at that in the future with this as a decision today? It's just unfortunate they're not here and able to discuss that, but they're viable and been part of the community for 50 years. You know,
There is.
and they're honestly landlocked now.
I don't think there'll be an issue, but it ain't gonna get done right now.
Okay, but there will be a protocol or at least that could be discussed and looked into, okay.
Yeah.
Same route we just took.
So
But it'll get-
I appreciate that.
I mean, it's only a couple hundred yards up the hill. I know where it's
I
at.
don't even want to vote on it, so get accused of ethics.
I hope he'd ask for me. That's the only reason I say.
Right, I will.
So we have a motion by Mr. Ross, second by Mr. Peters to approve what was presented. And not the 3 in the highlighted in the bottom.
Not the 3 highlighted, what do you mean?
Well, there's 4 down there, but we communicated about the last one, is that?
I moved the other one up to the top right now.
Oh, you.
Yep.
My paper didn't move that.
I know.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Yes.
Could I read this back to see if I
Yeah,
collected it
yeah,
correctly?
absolutely.
Motion was made by Mr. Russ to approve the routes accepting the 3 routes carved out in the presented list, second by Mr. Peters.
One of the questions on the order or something.
Do we have to approve them too?
That's what we're asking to do now.
Oh, can you read the motion?
Yeah, hold on here. I think I got a little. We're not accepting these. Is that what's going on?
Correct.
These are the
Except-
ones that were,
Except the one, the,
The Gerdo.
And
and then Chief Lake to Gerdo, right? That stays in there.
That's not double.
Chris, just gonna make it simple, approve all of them and you're okay.
no,
That's NN. Yes, it is. When we get to the end of Gerdo, we need to get that strip to get us to Chief Lake Road on NN.
so NN, Chief Lake Road to Gurnell Lake Road is up at top now for approval.
Mr. Ross,
Oh, does it?
Mr. Ross,
No, no, no.
Mr. Ross. And he's got an answer.
Just to clear, on your list there, County Road NN from Chief Lake Road to Gurnell Lake Road is up. I moved it into the approved part.
Okay.
The other three
Right,
that are,
we need that.
the other three that are highlighted there are not for approval. Those are not being removed.
Does our commissioner have any comments?
I'm good.
Do we have a motion by Mr. Ross, second by Mr. Peters, all in favor of the motion? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Letter B, ATV ordinance. ATV UTV ordinance update. Now we've had quite a few drafts, and you want to touch on the drafts?
Yeah, so the draft that was in the packet is the most recent version after we left last month's meeting. I think just to recap the highlighted areas in there, let me share it so everybody can see. So we added in sections 103 and 104 after the February meeting. And then council went through those and added in some language just to clarify that we can do those things to the extent permitted by law. And then down below, under 203, we added in hours of operation. Based on the committee motion, it was changed instead of 24 hours a day to be from 5 a.m. to 1 a.m. on Sawyer County road routes. And then accept those in section 301, which is those trails identified as being on the within the reservation boundaries of the Lac-Courte. Those would be operated on from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. And then down below, you have kind of what we did not renew. So based on your motion you just made to approve those additional segments, those would be added back in to that section there under 301. I think that kind of summarizes where we're at. I did pass out an email from Mr. Helwig. He wasn't sure if he'd be on tonight, but I think his email says something to the effect of a desire to go to 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. for the Sawyer County road routes as well. That's a consideration. That's a policy matter for the committee to decide. 6 a.m. to 12.
12 a.m.
Sorry, 6 a.m. to 12. And the feedback I've gotten from the discussions between the Alliance and the tribe is that they're still at 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. Within the reservation. Just a couple clarifications. Like I had mentioned, currently we operate under a resolution passed by the county board on how ATV routes are approved. And then it was relied upon each town to have their own ordinances to enforce it. The reason we're doing an ordinance is to have a countywide policy for all county roads that can be enforced under this ordinance. Anytime in the future where there'd be additional segments added, it would still come to this committee, but it'd actually have to be an ordinance amendment as well because the routes are all listed in the ordinance. So once the ordinance is adopted, that's what would happen. And we're under Muni code now, so I mean, this draft ordinance has numbering in it to identify the sections. If and when it's approved, we give the ordinance to Muni code and they number it and put it in our ordinances where it belongs.
Thank you. Yeah, you want to address the times?
We strongly feel that the county roads are not residential roads. We do not want a time limit on them. We feel that the county roads are more of a thoroughfare system where people are using those to traverse through, large areas or get somewhere. Many reasons. A lot of ATVers might be, on a multi-county ride. Get home late. We just don't want to restrict them. I doubt that many people actually choose to go on an ATV ride at night. But the few people who are out on the trails later at night, we just don't want them restricted. The trails don't have a time limit. And I have to say, I've done a little bit of riding at night. It's beautiful out there and I wouldn't want to be restricted. I understand that within LCO, they want a time limit and that's perfectly fine. I know they were hoping for some consistency between all of the townships and everything, but I firmly believe, and I think our committee does, that we don't want a time limit enforced on the county roads. It's not what we consider a residential road, even though some of the county roads pass by a residential area.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I speak to that?
Yes, you may.
Okay, the reason I had brought up the time limit, and you mentioned almost the last word you mentioned was residents. Now, those residents, I've had some residents contact me, and their issue is that they have machines running past their place, and we call Mr. Sander going zoom, 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 past their homes late in the evening or going into the morning. And like I say, we have to look or think about the residents also. And a lot of these residents haven't had any say as to what's going on with these trails. It's just been the association and the committee.
Committee got comments? Kathy?
Well, I don't know if you're gonna restrict one user group, I think you should also restrict everyone else that makes noise, like the motorcycles and the logging trucks. Well, I'm just saying, it goes across the board once you start restricting somebody from things like that, especially, I guess what galls me the most is that user group has to fight so hard for every road that we can ride on, yet we are the only user group other than vehicles that are paying for the roads. We help pay for those roads, we help pay to maintain those roads with the gas excise tax. And I just feel strongly that we shouldn't be restricted.
Mr. Chair, may I speak to that also?
We're not gonna get in the match of arguing back and forth, but if you want to state something, go ahead.
Okay, I just want to state that we are currently working on ATV, UTV ordinance. When we get to snowmobile ordinance, that may possibly, more likely come up. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you. What's the committee want to do with the ordinance?
Slippery slope.
You want to discuss hours only, or do you want to hear anything else?
Is there more stuff that?
There was a conversation this morning. I don't know if the commissioner wants to, or there's a conversation this afternoon regarding one of the questions Mr. Bissonette asked about. Right now, I think I said that September and April, when new routes can be brought forward for consideration. There's some discussion about going to maybe a different time frame of May, August, and October, and moving the route renewal to May. I don't know if the commissioner has an opinion on that.
Yeah, we had some discussion on that, and honestly, I'm fine with moving it to May, August, and October for bringing forward. I don't think at will would be good right now, and then and moving it to May to renew. I'm fine with that too. So
When are maps printed? I don't know the answer to that.
November.
November.
Okay, so they're not, yeah, just make, there's plenty of, it'd be terrible to do it, to not have that
Right.
coincide.
Is there more to deal with?
I think that's it.
So we have the times and,
Oh.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
The breakdown of costs for signs. We would like to propose that the county pays for the installation of the signs And the Alliance will provide the signs and pay for those. We think that's a good compromise. The ATVs bring a significant amount of money into this economy, and we think that the county should help us with that cost.
What's our commissioner saying?
That's still in discussion. We did talk about that today. I still want to work on that a little bit. I want to kind of look at the other counties too and see what we all do better. So, because as of right now, you guys have been placing signs, correct? And supplying signs.
Right.
Okay.
We've been installing and providing the signs.
And the liability, we should probably be installing the signs for liability reasons, so
I get that.
also for the counties for safety.
I guess I was under this presumption. I thought the county was installing, so I guess I had bad information. Thank you for clarifying. So, yes,
I got a question on 2.02C. This is a question I was trying to have. Probably a lot of order, but so ATVs and UTVs shall be operated within applicable speed limits. Now, like double N is 55. So, and this is more for my information than anything. So the way it would work is the highway commissioner could theoretically make the decision to set the speed limit higher for ATVs on a road like that? How does that work?
States, yeah.
can you help us out, Mr.?
Shouldn't we slow it down? I mean, honestly, it's two corners right there.
Well, ATVs can't operate faster than road speed.
Shouldn't we make a speed limit there that brings it down to like 45 prior to that big S curve?
Are you talking for
For
vehicles?
vehicles, yeah. I mean, really, you wanna leave it at 55 and run 20 machines out into that street
Well,
and then stop them again? I mean,
This
that don't
road's
make
fine.
no sense.
What road are we talking?
Double end,
Double N.
Colonel Lake to
That's the
Chief Lake.
example that I gave, because a good stretch of that is 55. Now, if you've got ATVs going 35, you know, that road kind of goes like that. And so from a safety perspective, I would think that we would either adjust the speed limit down for motor vehicles or up for ATVs. Now, I'm making the assumption that's the highway commissioner's responsibility, correct?
Is the
Yeah.
highway commissioner probably advises the committee, but the committee makes the decision.
yeah, I'm pretty sure that he advised us on that half stretch we dealt with, remember back in November, maybe.
So perhaps when he gets time, he could look at that and
Yeah.
then bring that to us. Would that be satisfactory?
No, like I said, that's how I figured that.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
there was the time.
Oh, and-
Hours of operation,
Yeah.
annual renewal date, new trail report, new route request.
Makes sense.
So the new route request to be are we willing to let it be 3 times?
Sure.
It-
I had no problem with
Yeah,
it.
that's fine, but it just, when it first came up, we didn't want the highway commissioner to have to be running out there every month. And straighten things out, so that's a good compromise, I feel. So 3 months is gonna be acceptable. And we have the time. Do we want to restrict the time or do we want to go 24 hours? What do we want to do? Any advice from the highway commission?
I mean, I think the times, they've always been 24/7 on county roads outside the reservation, correct?
Yes.
I think we could stay with that. I'm good with that too.
What was the third thing?
Annual renewal date.
And that's to move it till May.
Okay.
It's fine too.
Do we want to do anything with the time? Yes.
So I got a question. So. Should there be something in the ordinance, going back to what Kathy says, I would agree in principle that a lot of the county road segments are, for the most part, not residential. But what about resident, what about the sections of county roads that are heavy populated, and then you've got all the residents coming here and saying, you gotta do something, you know what I mean?
But prior, we haven't had any problems with it. And the past highway commissioners always said, you know, we haven't had problems with it, why should we be looking at it, or unless there's a safety issue. He's always addressed that, and he always used to give us an update on accidents. There was accidents because the county committee, this committee has a right that they can shut down any road anytime they want. With the ordinance, that might make it a little different, but still take it forward because of safety issues. I mean, that's what the main thing is. Okay,
Mr. Chair, I beg to differ on the no complaint thing from residents of machines running later. That's why I brought that up. So that's something I just came out of my brain, whatever.
yeah, thank you. So what would the community like to do?
I'd look at it, the highway commissioner.
Well, the highway commissioner is not gonna do the voting. He's advised us with everything he's
Right,
got.
that's all I'm looking for is recommendation.
Well, he's new at it.
You got your recommendation?
Yes.
You have to say it out loud.
Yes, I'm comfortable moving forward.
I'll move approval of the ordinance
For edits, with the edits.
with the
correct?
edits.
What was the edits in the hours?
I think it stayed the same at this point. The hours stayed the same at this point?
Yep,
and
yeah,
it's gonna
stayed the
be
same.
reviewed.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what does that mean? The hours stay the same?
The hours are 24/7 except for on the reservation. County roads.
We're looking at the red line version, which has the hours of operation from 5 AM to 9.
Well, that's what we're addressing, right?
I thought Mr. Peter.
That's what I-
you
As
approved.
So approve as modified.
So what I have up on the screen,
Okay.
then it's been
Just a minute, let's clarify.
modified. ATV, UTVs are able to be operated 24 hours a day on Surrey County road routes, except those identified in section 301 as being on the reservation. Those are on the reservation are operated 6 AM to 11 PM within the reservation boundaries. And then in section 401, instead of having route request in on April and September, it will now be by the second Wednesday in May, second Wednesday in August, and the second Wednesday in October. And in section 403, all existing UTV, ATV routes shall be reviewed in May of each year by the Surrey County Public Works Committee. ...
Yes. Make it
So-
brief, please.
I would like the record to reflect that the tribe would support route proposals monthly. And the reason for that is that sometimes you have flooding like we have right now, sometimes these routes need modification or changes, and I think it'd be more responsive if there were changes, that there is a opportunity doing this once, 3 times a year. I think that's irresponsible and not responsive to the needs of the ATV users, to the communities and whatever else. I mean, if there's a path that is dealing with a lot of traffic, you could respond to that sooner. And if there is not a lot of traffic, you could, modify accordingly. Second part is, I know that there's this concern about over-regulating. I don't know how you could over-regulate when we have law enforcement out regulating the same vehicles that are operating. I mean, you've got speeding, you've got, all the different rules of the road that are in place. The phenomenon of ATVs has only been a recent manifestation since what, like 2011, 2010. And some of these roads, really, we're gonna have to seriously do an examination of where these right of ways existed, whether it's on res or off res. Because ATVs are not vehicles, and the roads that were created with a specific purpose. So some of the easements are gonna say vehicular traffic, and some of them are gonna say transportation means or whatever else, and those are gonna be the language of the easements. And so you would be better off to anticipate what those legal challenges were, rather than, pound our chest and say that we have rights of Americans and we can go wherever we're gonna go. The last part I would say is, and I say this humbly and respectfully, is that we have a lot of law enforcement officers that will be tasked with these, and that I would ask people to show them a little bit more kindness, whether they're a tribal officer, county officer, township officer, that they all be treated with the same level of respect. Our community recently lost 2 officers, someone that was just doing their jobs, and they don't get to go home to their families. And so these law enforcement officers that are gonna be asked to enforce these. And if you are at 11 o'clock at night on the reservation, don't create the panic that you're gonna be confiscated and thrown in jail and that you're gonna be stuck in some Indian jail somewhere. If you tell the officer that you're trying to get home, I'm sure that there'll be some variance with that. If you're trying to tell them that we're lost and we're trying to get back, or, the county made this crazy trail and we're going backwards and around because, someone thinks Chief Lake Road goes all the way from Larson to somewhere else. I mean, there's flexibility. We're all working together with this instead of trying to buy into this polarization and this rhetoric. Respect these officers, and these officers will respect you, regardless of where they come from, regardless of what badge they were wearing. They all have the same duty and responsibilities to carry out and protect the whole larger community.
Thank you, Mr. Kathy.
I just want to make sure that you don't omit the part about the sign costs.
Thank you,
So,
Mr. Rose.
Real quick. These routes that are gonna come up every 3 months, aren't we opening the whole county? What roads are gonna be left open to be opened?
Private roads.
There's still roads that are not open. Yes,
So section 404.
Or to open your driveway then. Here, go ahead.
404 has the highway
excuse
department
me. Go ahead.
Please.
as the sole authority and responsibility for placement of the signs. And then in here, section 405 does have the alliance providing all necessary signs posts required for the installation, just to put what's in the ordinance at this time.
Yes,
I guess the only other thing that I'd like to add is that if there was an emergency of some sort, it would not require the ordinance would not supersede the safety for that
Right.
section of road. So that would not be a problem.
in the past, we've had flooding in areas. In the southern part of the county on Highway W, or excuse me, on Highway M. And it was brought forward to the committee and asked. Could it be used for a temporary trail to get around the flooding until things, a bridge washed out, until they got it worked out, and that has been done in the past. So, I don't think that's a problem. So on your motion, Mr. Peters, what hours are you stating? Are we stating 24/7? On county roads except for on tribal land?
Well, I was looking at the red line one, and that one goes from 5 AM to 1 AM. But if I misspoke on that, please correct me.
We're going by the recommendation.
I think it's the 24/7, and I know Mr. Helwig doesn't want that, but we're gonna see what happens here.
Maybe,
We can always be addressed again.
do you want to do a vote just on the hours?
We could do that. Can the committee vote on the hours that they want?
There's one last question.
Yeah.
So. Given Mark's stance on there, I mean, is there any concession the alliance would be willing to make? From the 5 AM to 1 AM? Or no, it should be 1 AM to 5 AM when it's closed. Is there any concession?
the meeting we had Friday night with our committee. It was unanimous. We didn't want a restriction on the hours. I do firmly believe that if there's a trouble spot on a highway where you're getting complaints, we could, address that somehow. But I still feel that strongly that we should not restrict the use on the county roads to a time.
And I'm fine with that. The only thing that, and that's kind of what I was alluding to a little bit earlier, in the event that there is a troubled area, what's the mechanism under the ordinance that allows people to come in and request that segment be closed? Or further restrict the hours of operation.
It'd be an ordinance amendment, so you could, I mean, the public could request that, and the committee could take that up at any time.
Ms. Hessel,
I was just going to ask for point of order. You asked the commissioner for his recommendation, he gave it, and now you're asking for a vote against his recommendation.
thank you. I think we have the whole ordinance here. We have the changes that are asked. We have the hours that are presented, which is 24/7. We have the request where they can request 3 different times during the month. We have the information regarding the signs. Is there anything else you want in the ordinance? I mean, we've been battling this ordinance for a spell of time.
Yes. So go ahead with the 24 hour.
We have a motion.
We're gonna make a motion on the whole ordinance.
Right, we have one from Mr. Peters, right?
I just want,
Yes,
Okay,
and including the 24 hours.
I'll second the motion. To approve. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion,
Aye.
opposed,
Opposed.
motion carries. Thank you. Letter 8, future agenda items we've talked about. When these items can be brought back, I think that's pretty clear now. We have some of the agenda set for the month of May. Number 9 is correspondence, reports, conferences. I'd like to thank all the public for taking time to come to these important items. Everybody's opinion counts. We try to do the best we can to try to move forward, and we try to make a way so you can readdress things that need to be readdressed. We try to set that up the best we can. If anybody has specific questions, they certainly are welcome to communicate with me or the administrator or anybody on the committee. We'll certainly try to address the best we can. Thank you. Meeting adjourned.
Mr. Chair, was my opposed position noted?
Yes, it was.
Thank you, sir. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
See you soon.
Oh, yeah, she's in the corner.
Thanks.